Most women dismiss a divorced man immediately. They shouldn't. But the pattern repeats, and it's based on a miscalculation that costs more than they realize. I've watched this happen often enough that the logic behind it has become predictable. A woman meets someone, 7 years older, divorced, career stable, sexually experienced. The reaction is almost automatic. Red flag. The thinking goes like this: if he couldn't make it work once, why would it work now? If someone already left, something must be wrong. And if he has kids, the situation gets even more complicated. But that entire framework misses what divorce actually signals. It's not failure, it's data. Let me explain what I mean, but not yet. First, notice what's being compared. A divorced man versus what? An unmarried man in his 30s or 40s, a man who's dated casually, a man who's had relationships but never committed long enough to marry. That comparison is where the error starts, because what's being evaluated isn't the same thing at all. Here's the part most women don't consider. A man who's been married didn't just date someone. He didn't just live with someone for 6 months and then walk away. He signed a contract. He merged finances. He made long-term decisions with another person's needs in the equation. He dealt with in-laws. He navigated years of daily proximity. He saw someone at their worst, repeatedly, and stayed anyway, until he didn't. That last part, until he didn't, is what gets focused on. But it's the wrong part. What matters is everything that came before. A divorced man knows what living with a woman actually involves. Not the version you perform for 3 months while you're both on good behavior. The version that shows up at 6 a.m. when neither of you slept well. The version that emerges during financial stress. The version that appears when someone's sick, or frustrated, or bored, or angry, for reasons that have nothing to do with you. He's already been through the phase where everything feels new. He's already experienced the shift from infatuation to routine. He knows what it looks like when attraction recalibrates. He understands that moods cycle, that silence doesn't always mean something's wrong, that some arguments repeat because they're not actually solvable. They're just differences that need to be managed. Think about what that actually means in practice. He's learned when to speak, and when speaking makes things worse. He's developed the ability to read micro shifts in tone that signal a bad day versus genuine dissatisfaction. He knows the difference between a complaint that needs action and a complaint that just needs to be heard. He's seen how small irritations compound over time if they're ignored, and how large conflicts can dissolve if they're handled correctly. More importantly, he's learned what can't be fixed. He knows which personality traits are permanent and which behaviors are negotiable. He's already tried compromise in situations where compromise doesn't work. He's already invested effort where effort wasn't the issue. That's not pessimism, it's calibrated expectation. And calibrated expectation prevents the kind of drawn-out deterioration that happens when someone keeps trying to solve the wrong problem. Now compare that to a man who's slept with 30 women, but never lived with one. What does he know? He knows how to attract. He knows how to perform in short bursts. He knows how to exit before things get complicated. But he has no reference point for what happens when exiting isn't an option. When you're legally bound. When shared assets are involved. When children exist. When walking away means losing more than just the relationship. That's not experience. That's avoidance disguised as success. And yet, women consistently overvalue the man who's avoided commitment and undervalue the man who committed, stayed, and then left. Why? Because divorce looks like evidence of failure. But it's not. It's evidence of learning. Here's what actually happened. A divorced man made a choice. Likely, he made it younger than he is now. He chose someone based on attraction, or chemistry, or timing, or social expectation. And then he lived with the consequences of that choice long enough to see what was missing, long enough to realize that some incompatibilities don't resolve, long enough to understand that effort without alignment just creates exhaustion. And then he made a second choice. He left. That second choice is what women misread. They see it as proof he'll leave again. but it's actually proof he's capable of recognizing when something isn't working and acting on it. That's not instability, that's decisiveness. The fear is that he'll repeat the pattern, that he'll commit, realize it's wrong, and leave again. But that fear ignores the timeline. The first marriage likely lasted years, possibly 5, possibly 10. He didn't leave at the first sign of trouble. He stayed through multiple cycles of trying to make it work. He adjusted, he compromised, he gave it time. And only after all of that did he conclude it wasn't fixable. That's not someone who leaves easily. That's someone who stays far longer than he should have, and finally learned to stop doing that. So when he enters a new relationship, he's not coming in with the same blind optimism he had the first time. He's coming in with a specific understanding of what he's willing to tolerate and what he's not. He knows what partnership style works for him and what doesn't. He's already made the mistakes that come from not knowing yourself well enough to choose correctly. Now, think about what that means for his next relationship. He's not guessing anymore. He's not operating on theory. He knows what he needs. He knows what he doesn't. He's already seen the version of partnership that doesn't work, so he's not entering the next one blind. More than that, he's already developed the skills required to sustain proximity. He knows how to share space, how to negotiate, how to tolerate irritation without escalating, how to reset after conflict. Those aren't skills you develop by dating casually. They're skills you develop by being stuck in close quarters with someone for years. He's also learned something most unmarried men haven't: that attraction alone doesn't sustain anything, that sexual chemistry doesn't prevent resentment, that being physically drawn to someone has almost nothing to do with whether you can build a functional daily life with them. The man who's never been married is still figuring that out. The divorced man already knows it. He knows that the excitement of the first 6 months means nothing if the foundational compatibility isn't there. And here's the part that rarely gets said. He's also learned how to disengage, how to have difficult conversations, how to navigate the legal and emotional logistics of ending something that was supposed to be permanent. That's not a skill anyone wants to use again, but it's a skill that means he won't stay in something that's broken just because leaving is hard. So when a woman compares him to a man who's never been married, she's comparing two completely different data sets. One man knows what long-term partnership requires, the other man knows what short-term attraction requires. And somehow, the second one gets treated as the safer bet. But here's the part that makes this particularly costly. The divorced man is now making decisions with more information. He's not just reacting to attraction, he's filtering for compatibility. He's aware of what derailed him last time. He's not trying to recreate the first marriage. He's trying to avoid repeating its problems. That doesn't mean he's perfect. It doesn't mean he won't make mistakes. But it does mean his mistakes will be different. And his baseline understanding of what partnership actually entails is already years ahead. The man who's never married? He's still learning all of this in real time, which means the woman who chooses him is signing up to be part of his education. She'll be the one he figures things out with, or the one he figures things out on. And if that relationship doesn't work, he'll take what he learned into the next one, just like the divorced man already did. The difference is timing. The divorced man has already completed that learning cycle. The unmarried man is about to start it. And the woman who dismisses the divorced man because of his past is choosing to enter someone else's learning process instead of benefiting from the fact that it's already finished. This is where the miscalculation compounds, because it's not just about choosing inexperience over experience. It's about choosing potential problems that haven't surfaced yet over problems that have already been identified and resolved. The divorced man's issues are known. His patterns are visible. His breaking points have already been tested. The unmarried man's issues are still hidden, which doesn't mean they don't exist. It just means they haven't been exposed yet. So the question isn't whether a divorced man failed. The question is, would you rather be with someone who's already been through the learning curve or someone who's still in the middle of it? Most women choose the latter without realizing they've made a choice at all. They just see divorced and stop thinking. And the man who's been through it once the one who understands what daily partnership actually requires, gets passed over for the man who's been skilled at avoiding it. That's not caution. That's a pattern that repeats because the wrong variable is being measured. The assumption is that divorce means something went wrong, but long-term partnership always involves things going wrong. The difference is whether someone stayed long enough to see it and then decided what to do about it. A divorced man stayed, and then he left. Both of those actions required more commitment than never marrying at all. But the narrative treats the second action as the only one that matters. And so the man with the most relevant experience becomes the one women avoid, while the man with the least gets treated as the safer option. Once that miscalculation is in place, it doesn't correct itself. It just repeats.